North Idaho College proudly presents NIC Today, an informational news magazine that highlights the people, programs, and campus life at North Idaho College and the surrounding community. And now, your host and moderator, President of North Idaho College, Dr. Joe Dunlap.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to NIC Today, the program that brings you the people and programs for North Idaho College. Today is the first day of classes in 2014 and our first show for 2014 as well. And so the campus is abuzz, things are moving, people are very busy, there's a sense of reinvigoration, and today we've got some leaders from campus that I'd like to introduce to you. First of all, Dr. Lita Burns, our Vice President for Instruction, is with us here today. Lita, glad to have you.
Good to be here.
We've got Vice President Graydon Stanley, who is Vice President of Student Services, responsible for the support that the students are provided while they're here. Graydon, glad to have you here. And then we have our new Vice President of Finance and Business, Chris Martin, and we'll talk to him in just a moment. We also have with us today the President of our Student Leadership Organization, Richard Fortman, is here. Richard, glad to have you, and thank you for stepping up to the plate and being the President this year. And then, as always, I have the pleasure of being here with Mark Browning, our Vice President for Governmental Affairs and Marketing. So welcome, everybody. So as we get started, what I'd like to do first is ask Chris to tell us a little bit about himself, where he came from, and what he hopes to achieve here at North Idaho College. And then Richard, I'm going to ask you the same type of question. So Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, very, very glad to be here at North Idaho College. Been on the job just a little over a month and a half now. Coming here from Wichita, Kansas, from Wichita Area Technical College. Very much looking forward to being part of the team and really working with the team here to increase our accountability and transparency in our budgeting processes and really trying to put some better structure around all of our processes here.
Well, we're very glad to have you. We're happy that you're here and that your family's here as well, and we hope you're here for the duration.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And Richard, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up in the Rathdrum, Post Falls, Coeur d'Alene area, so I really enjoy the area. I'm glad to have the opportunity to serve the students and serve all the wonderful people at North Idaho College. Really looking forward to being that voice and getting my degree here and then moving on. So.
And what are you majoring in?
Engineering here, and then my aspirations are petroleum engineering.
Oh, wonderful. So what kind of activities and priorities does ASNIC have for the campus this next year?
Well, first and foremost, ASNIC's #1 priority is being the voice of the students.
Okay.
Then after that, it's serving the students. So a lot of things that we're doing right now is the students pay an ASNIC fee, and with that fee, we put on events for the students. So throughout the year, we'll be constantly doing shows as far as comedians, and other things of that sort. In addition, we're also doing things like the food pantry and being the voice for the rec center that we have going on. So we're just excited.
Well, good. We're glad to have the students back on campus. So Lita, why don't you tell us a little bit about what instruction has going on this fall, maybe what your priorities are, and any new programs that we may have to offer.
Thank you, Joe. You know, I'd like to talk about instruction just from the perspective of that we've got our classes very full this fall, which is very exciting because we were, wondering exactly what that might be like, and I think Graydon's going to speak to that a little bit more in the future. Certainly, I think when we are thinking about campus overall, we've been talking about program optimization for the campus, and we think that this is going to be a campus-wide initiative that will help North Idaho College really examine what programs we have on campus that are helping us to best serve our mission for North Idaho College. It'll give us a really in-depth look at all the programs and decide, evaluate which programs are most successful and maybe help us to align our resources better. I think this is going to help us to prepare ourselves for the next 5, 10, maybe even 15 years, really position ourselves in a good way to make sure that we can support all of the programs that are meeting the mission of the college. So this information has just been shared with the campus, and we'll be working real hard towards getting that program off the ground.
Well, good. And Chris, will program optimization help in the budgeting process at all?
Absolutely. I think it will really help us align our resources where they can best serve the college, and not only now, but looking to the future as well.
Okay. Graydon, tell us what's happening in student services today and what we have to look forward to this semester.
Thanks, Joe. We're really excited about this first day. When you come onto campus and it's difficult to find a parking spot, that's good news. We like that on this first day. And just all the activity and students in between classes, this is the best day of the year for those of us who work in higher education. So it's an exciting day. In terms of student services, we're still trying to help students transition successfully into the classroom right now. Advising Center has been really busy as students are still choosing some classes or moving in between classes. Students taking care of financial aid, stopping at student accounts, just all that business that accounts for the first 2 or 3 days. We try to put everything else aside and really focus on what the students' needs are going to be during this first week, because there's a lot of transition and there are a lot of green innocent faces today trying to figure out where they were supposed to go. I love also on our campus, across campus, from instruction to business to communications, marketing. We have people out in front of all the buildings, the ambassadors working to welcome students onto campus, to get them to the right place, to help them get acclimated these first couple days. So busy, exciting time for us on campus.
Graydon, you've been busy over the summer with something called the Enrollment Management Council. What is that, and how does that translate into what we're seeing in education across the state, which is really a decline in folks that are coming here to campuses?
It certainly is, but we feel like we're turning that around a little bit. Most folks know that the population in higher education enrollment runs opposite to the economy. We want to be careful because we want to wish for good economy. But when that happens, that means that people are able to get jobs and not come to school. When the economy is poor, then they come to college. So we went through that period of time, as you know, a few years ago, where our enrollments were just growing dramatically because it was a difficult economy. As that's turned around, and it's good for our community, it's good for our region, it's good for our state. Last couple of years, our enrollment's gone the other way. We've been declining, and we think we've turned that corner a bit. Worked really hard this last year in getting the word out to everybody about the value of higher education. There's a number of initiatives in the state, the Complete College Idaho and others, in the nation, Complete College America and others, talking about the value of having this degree. So we've tried to roll that message out. We had teams working together this summer. I know all of us at the table had staff or were there calling themselves. We had all our prospective students. We had their phone numbers, and we were on the phone trying to get in touch with them and see what we could do to help them get through any additional steps to become a student here this fall. So worked together. That was real successful. So enrollment looks like for fall semester that it's getting better for us. We had projected a larger decrease than we anticipate having. More students have chosen North Idaho College. And then our challenge as we work through the next couple of years, increasing that, more students accessing, coming in the front door, but then keeping those students in our house, if you will, a little bit longer until they achieve their goals. So really focused with instruction, with student services, with all of us here about helping those students stay, retain them here, help them be successful, and then reach whatever goal that is, to transfer to another institution, to get a job, to meet whatever they set as the goal. We have new measuring stick with the voluntary framework of accountability that helps us identify what the students' goals are, to see if they reach them, and we're all working real hard to provide students with what they need to be successful during their time here and go on to that next step.
Well, Graydon, you mentioned those the telethon we had to call students that had completed a portion of the
Right.
application or a portion of the federal financial aid form. And I am really pleased with the fact that 82 employees from the college volunteered to come in and participate in that telethon, and they called over 1,200 students to assist them in completing those application forms and encouraging them to attend college. And I'm sure that had a positive impact on our enrollment as well. And so I want to publicly thank all of our employees who participated. That was just wonderful.
Joe, I think it's important that folks at home understand, going back to Graydon's point about how we handled and are handling declining enrollment here, and the amount of budget pre-work that was done through Chris's office and all of us working together to try to anticipate where that number would be, and how the college addressed that. I think folks at home would be interested to see from your perspective how that was handled.
Well, we knew that as the economy was getting better, our enrollment was going to decline. And so we kind of looked in the tea leaves and anticipated up to a 10% decline in enrollment this year. And as such, we took a $2.3 million budget reduction this last year to make up for a little bit of a decline last year and what we forecast this next year. And so that has put us in very good shape because, as Graydon mentioned, we come in less than a 10% decline. And so fiscally, we are well prepared for that. We had a guest speaker here on last week for all the faculty and staff, and she mentioned that we were in rare company because across the nation there's only about 1 in 10 or 20 colleges that anticipated that decline and really planned well for it. So again, I am very proud of our staff, our faculty, and our business office for helping and leading that initiative.
You talk about initiatives, Joe, and you know, enrollment drives a lot of things here, but it drives programs and the things that Lita was talking about with optimization. And one of the things that we've been working on here campus-wide for years, it seems like, is what to do with career and technical education and how to deal with our facilities. And the Board of Trustees made a decision over the summer to go ahead and move forward with the construction of a new facility. And that facility will be located on Lancaster Road out on the prairie near the high school Kootenai Technical Education site out there, K-Tech. And there's been a lot of work, especially coming out of your office, President, that's been over the last 45 days.
Well, there has, but I'm going to ask Lita to comment on that new facility that we have planned. And then maybe Chris can talk about the next steps in terms of moving that project forward. So Lita, you know, what programs do we anticipate putting in that new career and technical education facility?
Well, first of all, let me just say that this is an extremely exciting time. I've been at North Idaho College for 13 years, and I know even prior to my arriving at North Idaho College, discussion about a new career and technical facility has been going on. So to be at the point where we're actually starting to talk about the programs going into it, because we have a site location and plans to actually build, is just a wonderful time to be a part of North Idaho College. But primarily the building is going to house our trades and industry programs. So we're talking about diesel, we're talking about auto, we're talking about collision repair, we're talking about maintenance mechanic. Boy, there's 7 of the programs, and I'm not sure I listed 7, but 7 in total of the programs that we are looking to place out there at the new facility, and really trying to design a facility that will serve us not only today, because we've been in need for quite some time now, but will serve us for the next 10 to 20 years in terms of wanting to increase our enrollment for those programs. As we've talked about over and over again, on campus we have programs that are full with waiting lists, primarily because of the size of the container that holds those programs. And so we're looking forward to having a new facility that's going to meet our needs right now, but will also allow us to continue to grow. Welding is probably the primary program that we are looking to make sure that we can get all the students who are interested in welding, because there's so many opportunities for jobs in that particular field, that we get them educated, trained, and ready to enter the field of welding. So,
okay. And Chris, tell us what the next steps are with regard to designing and building that facility.
Well, in July, the Board of Trustees laid out the initial plan for that building as a 100,000 square foot facility with approximately $15 million in funding for this facility. During the month of September, we'll be going out for architectural and engineering firms to submit an RFQ for that process, giving us that month just to go through that and allow that process to take place so that during October we can hopefully decide on the plan there and select a firm to actually do the design work for that facility. And as Lita mentioned, really that is the time we'll start working on making sure that we get the proper space for those 7 programs.
And Mark, I haven't asked you anything that's...
What am I doing?
Well, let me rephrase that. Talk to us about what's new in terms of governmental relations and legislation that impacts higher education, and what's happening with regard to marketing at NIC.
There have been a number of things that always come out of the legislative session each and every spring, and probably the landmark bill that came out was Senate Bill 1254, which authorized a new level of permission for folks who wanted to carry personal guns on campus. It authorizes a person who has an enhanced concealed carry permit if they meet the criteria to carry on Idaho public campuses. We've worked very closely with local law enforcement and other folks on the other campuses around the state to try to draft policy and regulations that allow those folks who have gone through that process to get that permit the ability that they now have legally to carry, and while still ensuring the safest environment that we can for our campus. And that really is our number one concern, is that our students, our faculty and staff feel safe here to learn, to work, and to teach, and that's why we're here. That has taken an awful lot of effort from a number of folks, Alex Harris and all the folks in our security department. The students have been very involved in that as well. From the governmental relations side, we are already probably 30 to 40% through our legislative work for the next session. I mean, the election hasn't even determined who will be there in Boise in January yet, and we're already about 40% through our work because of timelines, the way it works with the state, and when budgets and line items and those types of things have to be submitted. But we're working very diligently to get the resources we need to continue with our very successful aerospace program. We've got good support from the governor's office and from a number of our area legislators that really understand the link between what this community college can provide in terms of preparing a workforce and keeping the economy going in really a very hot industry that has nowhere to go but up in a number of different ways. So on the marketing side, our folks have been very busy here, and we have completely turned everything upside down over the last couple of years and have really taken a very strategic approach aligned with the college's strategic plan, which is our number one priority is to drive application for students to come. And so that means we're not popping up in places where you may have seen us over the last 15 to 20 years, and hopefully you are seeing us in places where you haven't during that time. But we feel very good about what we've done. We've done a complete not a rebranding, but a refresh on our branding and our colors, and they're a little more vibrant, a little more active and positive, and we've done that in the face of, as you had mentioned, that we've all tightened the belt pretty significantly, but we appreciate the efforts of everybody on campus to work with that, and the folks that we work with off campus, and in the media suppliers. They've been very good to work with, so we're happy about the outcome.
And I think you're about ready to unveil a new website as well, aren't you?
Yeah, in the midst of all of this, we decided to redo the website because, it's just a minor little project, but it needed it. And, websites are an interesting creature because everybody has a different view of what they should be. And really, when we sat down and stripped everything away, we looked at it and we said, it is really, it's oftentimes the first exposure that folks outside campus get to North Idaho College, and so it really must be geared to those folks externally more than internally. So how do you apply what's here, what's being offered, what do we offer in terms of helping you match what you'd like to do with the skills that you have for the jobs that are out there. There's internal sites that then help take care of our faculty and students and employees that match them to documents and forms and all the different types of things. But it needed a new look. It was like a good car that we bought 5 or 6 years ago. We've driven it hard. We've serviced it, but it needed fresh paint and few dings knocked out of the fenders and some tires, and I think you're going to like it. I think we put a lift kit in it and souped it up a little bit. I think you're going to like it a little bit.
Well, that's great. One other initiative that is going on right now is that there's a food drive to establish a food bank for our needy students. And there's some interesting competition that's taking place. And so, Graydon, I'm going to ask you to talk about that. And Richard, you may want to weigh in as well about the food bank for the students.
Gotcha, yeah.
Our folks in student development had brought forward an initiative about trying to help our own here. There's certainly some great food pantries out in the community, but we wanted to start with our family here close to campus. And so they've asked the campus here, the employees and the students, to join together in providing items that could be given to our students here. Established a food pantry over in the Student Union building. The competition to drive giving for that had to do, Joe, you're certainly a big part of that. It's called, it's named after Joe, it's called the Presidential Plunge, and it is the competition is between the 4 vice presidents and who's able to collect the most food. And I've tried to play by the rules. Some of the rest of the people at the table haven't necessarily done that, but the idea is that you get people to put food in your bin that's marked for you, and then they'll compare all that up, and there'll be a winner, the one who collects the most food, and that person will have the opportunity to dunk the president. You agreed to that.
Yes, I did.
And then
sadly.
Well, you'll have company, and I have a feeling we might be familiar to each other tomorrow. And there'll be a loser in that, and the one who either the least amount of food was put in theirs, or other people went and stole food from their bin and put it in their own bin, or convinced them to put it in somebody else's bin. There's just a lot of shenanigans,
side of the table.
shenanigans going on. But then the loser will also be dunked. We'll join you on the Presidential Plunge platform.
We haven't decided who gets to dunk that losing VP, do we?
I don't think we have decided.
Okay, all right. Well, Richard, how do you feel about establishing the food bank?
Well, it's a great initiative that's being head up by Jess Bennett, and it's been something that the students have asked for in the past, and now that we have the opportunity and the space to do it, I think it's not only a wonderful for the students, but also for the staff and faculty to be involved in a way to give back, and then also if they're in need for that stuff, and that's in the lower level of the sub. So it's down by rec sports, so if you're familiar with the area.
You know, students have so many challenges, and some come from situations where everything works out, others have real difficulties. And, you know, we hear sometimes of these stories of homeless students who come and attend, and we simply don't have any idea that when class is over and the student union closes, they're living in cars, they're, you know, and they're worrying about where that next meal comes from. And, you know, getting through the rigor that is post-secondary is tough enough. So if we, you know, we can have some fun here and kind of poke fun at ourselves, we're all for helping someone know where that next meal's coming from.
You know, to that same end, I know Richard and most of us at the table are familiar with this too. This summer there was a call that came out from the community food pantry talking about the shelves were empty and people were still in need. And we were so proud here on campus to know that one of the first groups to come to the rescue, if you will, was Phi Theta Kappa, our International Honor Society for community college students. And they, the very next day, it was the weekend of the Art on the Green event held here on our campus. And they went out the very next day, established an area there, asked people to help as they came into Art on the Green, and they collected an enormous amount of food and money to support food for that food pantry over just a 3-day weekend. It was about $3,500. It was over 1,000 pounds of food. They really came to the rescue and just made us so proud of them being a part of the NIC family.
You know, as the economy gets better, you know, and we deal with some of those effects now with declining enrollment, but it's not all the way back. And there's a lot of need in our community, there's a lot of need for our students. And so sometimes, you know, we hear the news reports, well, unemployment is down and the economy is getting better, and we mistakenly think, oh, things are pretty good. And we forget there's a lot of need in the community. So, you know, a kind word and a little bit of help, I think, goes a long way. So we're anxious to see Graydon go down to the I've got some floaties, you know, to put around his arms, so we'll make sure that you're taken care of.
Chris, on another note, talk to us about long-range plans that you have from the Business and Finance Office. And as you look down the road, what kind of changes do you see implementing?
I think one major change that's really come on the forefront that was in plan even before I got here was looking at our procurement processes, making sure that we're following industry standard best practices, getting the most bang for our buck with all of our purchasing, being good stewards. And part of that is using procurement cards and allowing quicker access for services and for goods for the college as they see a need. That's one key thing. As well as ensuring that we are getting the best price that we can for every product that we're sourcing at this time. So I see some real cost savings there. That's one big initiative. Another is looking truly at long-range planning and looking at our budget beyond just the typical 12-month fiscal year and looking at making sure that we have a plan in place as we've got a lot of grant funding. Some of those require some sustainability so that we're looking 36 months down the road, making sure that we have a plan in place for new programs, for bringing those grants on board as a sustainable mechanism, and then also allowing us to really focus on enrollment management long term.
Well, good. Well, Lita, I'm going to give you the last word. And as you look down the road, what type of new programs do you think we will be considering in the future?
Certainly, I think that healthcare is going to be a huge initiative, and that's near and dear to my heart for one thing. But also, as we speak about grants, we have just submitted for an additional TAC 3 or TAC 4 grant, federal government grant, and we are really hopeful that we will receive that grant. That grant will allow us to expand our healthcare offerings here in the Coeur d'Alene and North Idaho area, but also across the state, so we can be more collaborative with other areas in the state that have needs to produce, if you will, healthcare providers. And so as we are looking at expanding, I know that we would like to see a medical technician program, we'd like to see a dental hygienist program, a dental assisting program. I think there's plenty of opportunity to expand in the healthcare area.
Well, thank you, Lita. And thank all of you for joining us today to hear what's going on with North Idaho College and hear about some of the new initiatives. And I'd like to thank my special guests, Richard, our president of the Student Association, Graydon Stanley, Vice President, Student Services, Mark Browning, Vice President for Governmental Affairs and Marketing, Chris Martin, our new Vice President for Business and Finance, and Dr. Lita Burns, our Vice President for Instruction. So thank all of you for joining us today, and be sure and tune in next month and see how we've progressed. Thanks for joining us.